To me, the Mill Creek project was a blessing. It was a new way for me to present the instructional part of a program in a way that would relate to the students and bring it home to them.
Glenn made it come alive for them. So he made them want to know about the history. He made them want to know about possible futures.
Remember the timeline they presented? They did out in the hallway. Teachers were coming down from all over the building. People would come in, and the kids, some other time, they would come out and they'd start to talk to them about the history of the Mill Creek. Kids were going home telling parents things the parents never even knew. We did that web book, and each kid had to do a drawing about the neighborhood, something they wanted to see different, and then tell a story about it. And when it was placed on the web, and they could show it, I mean, they were bringing other students from around the school to my classroom to pull it up on the computer. Look, look, look.
Once they became involved with this project, it was just a complete turnaround. And it formed my whole opinion on education. It made me realize that our biggest problem is not necessarily teaching the youth. It's more about getting them to buy into education. It's more about getting them excited about education. Once you have them going, you couldn't stop them if you wanted to. And that, I think, is the major lesson of that project. Like, I watched one of the students who would not read at all, and all his teachers said, oh, he won't read, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly he wanted to learn like HTML. And I don't know, like that was a book that was like this thick. It was HTML4, I think it was at the time. And he just grabbed the book, started reading, and then he started reading other things because he had to read other things in order to complement what he was doing.
You know, we'd go around to the Aspen farms, and it was like, it was an outside classroom. Science was just taught differently. They were over there on the weekends.
I distinctly remember the summer program and really not having this understanding of what it was all about. I just didn't get it. You know, think about this. We're going to spend a summer, a hot summer, and we're going to look at historical maps, and we're going to go out in a garden and dig, and we'll do some computer work also. My initial thought would be, as an adult, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, why would I do that? And then to see kids come in and not only get into it, but really get into it, it changed my vision of what education should be and could be.
The students were the ones that pushed the growth of the program. We started school, if I remember correctly, it was like 8 or 8:30, but they would meet me there 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, we got to get there early, we have things to do. And then we would stay afterward, and they were doing things like building computers, and one of the things that they also did was created the network. As I said, they built the server, they wired everything up. They ended up taking care of everything in the building. So if there was a computer problem, because at one point I was responsible for all the computers in the building, instead of me having to run around everywhere, I could just dispatch one of several students, and they used to call them Armstead's Army. They were very professional, even though they were young. And these, you have to remember, are middle school, 11, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids.
These are the kids that you see every day, and they were doing extraordinary things. So if they can do it, why can't other kids? And then you had all of these kids together, and the crazy thing was, the behavioral students, the special ed kids, the failing students, the straight A students, once they got together in these different projects, when you looked at them, you didn't know who was who. You couldn't tell.
If someone looked from the outside, they would not have expected our students to do what they've done. For people who do not know Philadelphia, there is a section of the city that's been called the Bottom. And it was called the Bottom because that was where the lowest income, the most crime, all of the things that people think of as being wrong in a large city took place in this area. And this is the area that the students came from. So when you hear myself or other people reflect on how these kids turn around and put their all into this project and how they learn so much, you have to remember that this is not coming from people who already had like this great start. These are people that, for a large part, were struggling.
And it was scary. I'm not going to say it wasn't. Because we had a saying, if you could teach at Sulzberger, you could teach at any school in the city of Philadelphia. We had some rough kids, we had rough parents. The kids that were in my classroom were the ones that weren't expected to get past junior high school.
Just ask the children at Sulzberger Middle School in West Philadelphia.
Hello, Mr. Governor. My name is Odell Hall, and I'm in the 7th grade. Thank you. Thank you, members of the General Assembly. I'm Keith Cisco, and I'm in the 8th grade.
I remember when they presented to the General Assembly with Governor Ridge. They got a standing ovation from the General Assembly. I remember when the Kellogg Conference, and it's a conference, the topic was the Mill Creek and the research they had done, along with your students from Penn. I remember there were people from all over the country there. I sat up there and cried because I did not believe that my kids, my students, give me a minute. That they had learned that much and retained it. I mean, they just took over like professionals.
See, there were points in time where I was humbled by the Penn students, I was humbled by the Sulzberger students, but I also saw where the Penn students were humbled by the Sulzberger students. And I think it, for some of the kids, demystified the whole college. Because college, when it's shrouded in that mystery and it's, you know, you almost, it's like you can't touch it. Hold up, this guy's in college, this guy's at Penn. And I just showed him how to do something. You know, well, I could be a Penn, you know, why can't I?
Our school, of course, like many schools, was not funded to the level that we would like. We wrote grants, and again, this was not just the adults. We had an adult grant writing team, but the kids also were involved with the writing of the grant to get the computers in. They felt like, and they really were, part of the reason that the computer lab came in there. I mean, when the school district was taken over by the state of Pennsylvania due to funding problems, et cetera, Sulzberger was turned into one of the schools run by Edison. And the moment that Edison came in, they took away all of the things having to do with the project. They decided that they were going to disperse this equipment to some of their other schools, which is kind of heartbreaking to see, where kids are all involved and ready to do stuff and now they can't do it again. Things were going so well with this project. It was so obvious that this is the way education should go that we became part of the national spotlight, which is another reason that I don't understand why on one hand people could say, yes, this works, and then on the other hand, but we don't feel like we want to bother trying to replicate it. If you know that that's what it is that drives people, why would you then try to give them a dry curricula which is going to turn off most folks?
And if I'd had my druthers, I would have never left Sulzberger. But, you know, when they brought the Edison and the things that they wanted to do, I just couldn't do that. If it had kept going, I'd love to see where it can go. It got the community involved. We built a strong parent association. The school was open at night. We talked about the school being the hub of the community. If we could get back to that, we could start making some real changes.
What I do now is all about advocacy for choices and options, and that is purely born out of truly believing that kids can be change agents in their community. The Mill Creek Project empowered kids and teachers. As an educator, it changed completely the way I approached everything that I did and still do in education.
I am very, very, very distraught over what I see in education. It's really aggravating to me when people start telling me what kids can't do, and then they don't give them a chance to do it. I think that you hear a lot in education about people saying high expectations, but When they say high expectations, they mean I expect you to sit in your seat and do what I say and study for the test tomorrow. And to me, that's not high expectations. I would much rather see you reaching out for something, struggling, and saying, hey, I struggle, help me out, and picking it up on your own. When I tell people about it, they look at it like, okay, that's anecdotal evidence. Or they look at it like, okay, so you had a good group of kids. People do not want to admit that education can change. They don't want to admit that kids can do much more than we give them credit for. And by the time they get older, they've turned off the education and it's our fault. And people want to keep saying, these kids, these kids, these kids. I think people don't believe it until they see it. If we could just do it in a few different places so that A, people can see that it can be replicated, and B, so that it just becomes more normal and people start to expect it, I think we can change the way education's run. Until the general public makes things happen, until they look and say, yes, we're messing over our youth, I don't think things will change. So that's the message that we have to get to the rest of the world, is to not throw the kids away.